I'm continuing to explore the founding values that Venerable Children outlined, established at the time that the Abbey was founded. I think it's really good for us to refresh and revisit and renew our understanding of these things periodically. And it's been very fun to go through them. So the last two talks I gave were on the first one that she lists, which is generosity, and that has extensive material on how generosity is a founding principle, both in our relationships with ourselves, with the Dharma, and with all the lay people that we're engaged with in our practice. So today, the second one on her list is compassion, where she says living a monastic life together as a community is part of our practice of compassion. Community life is very important. It is a vibrant community in which our interaction with each other is part of our Dharma practice. So I don't know, when we talk about compassion, how much we actually think of that in terms of our relationship with one another. Venerable writes that we assume those wishing to come to the Abbey have the desire to live as a community. So that's our intention. We come here because we want to live in community. And this is her definition, to follow the daily and yearly schedules, to attend teachings and meditation sessions, to offer service to the Sangha through our daily work, and to participate in community gatherings and meetings. Now, we know those are the foundations of how we operate every day, but have you ever thought about those as a practice of compassion? How it is that we go to the hall is a practice of compassion if that's in our mind, right? That we come to our Dharma discussions, that we show up for the discussion groups on sharing the Dharma Day, that is part of our compassion practice. So we learn the simple definition that compassion is wishing someone to be free of suffering. Now you can wonder, what the heck does going to a discussion group have to do with wishing someone to be free of suffering? But I really have learned so much from studying this definition that His Holiness the Dalai Lama gives in his book, Ethics for the New Millennium. He says, our capacity for empathy is the source of that most precious of all qualities, which in Tibetan we call nyingje. Forgive my pronunciation. Now, while generally translated simply as compassion, the term nyingje has a wealth of meaning that is difficult to convey succinctly, though the ideas it contains are universally understood. He says this term, translated as compassion, connotes love, affection, kindness, generosity, gentleness of spirit, and warm-heartedness. Those kinds of qualities are all embraced in that idea of empathy leading to compassion. It is also used as a term of both sympathy and endearment, he says. But most importantly, nyingje denotes a feeling of connection with others, reflecting its origins in empathy. So if we think about compassion in that super broad, warm, round, comforting, embracing way, you can see very much how our life, living, training together in community, is about cultivating this heart, cultivating this mind of compassion. And Venerable says, community life has its blessings and its challenges. That is an understatement on both sides of that. There's many, many blessings of our community life, and there are many, many challenges. Why? Because we're challenging our self-centered thought, we're challenging our autonomy, we're challenging our ideas of what is right for us. On the other hand, we have Dharma friends who support our spiritual aspirations, who share our spiritual aspirations, support our practice, and we encourage each other to practice too, even just by showing up. You know, sometimes those mornings when you just don't want to get out of bed and you don't want to not be the person not in the hall, it helps move you to get to your practice. And then once you're on the cushion, does anybody ever regret, oh, I'm so sorry I finally got up? Once in a while, okay, some people. I don't think I ever have. Once I've gotten up, I'm like, I am so glad I came to do this and also to share it in community. We create a peaceful atmosphere together in a place where the Dharma is lived and people are valued. And the rarity of that environment is sometimes easy to take for granted until we go out and visit somebody, until we take our leave. Then you come back and everyone is very happy to be back at the Abbey, I think. It's a universal experience. So by living in community, we learn to give and take. I mean, we have different ideas, we have different preferences, we have different ways of doing things. She built that into our offering service prayer. Different ways and ideas of doing things may arise. These are a natural and a source of creative exchange. Our minds don't need to make them into conflicts, although they do sometimes. And then we have the tools to be able to work with those. So by living in community, we give up some of our preferences when it is better for the larger group. I mean, for example, cooking lunch. We learn to give up our preferences so that we can make meals that other people can eat. I don't know how much hot pepper we would be using if we were, some of us, if we were cooking individually, but we don't. I mean, that's a very simple kind of gross example. But if we think of that, that's part of our broad practice of compassion. That's part of what we bring to our living together. We have to give up, we have to soften our opinions and our ways of expressing them to live harmoniously with others. Is that true? I mean, do you get that? Learning to soften our opinions. Our opinions, oh boy, mine are strong. You know that. So are yours. And yet, we find ways to make those work together. We find the ways to work around those, and that is part of our developing our capacity to live in relationship with other people. Furthermore, she says, we are not Buddhas. We still suffer from ignorance, anger, and attachment, and these afflictions sometimes color our relationships with each other. But when we acknowledge that, we can learn to develop compassion more than we recognize are the afflictions in ourselves. And learn to accept that this is there and that we have the capacity to change them. The more tolerant we are of seeing them arise in others, and the greater our capacity to be able to hold each other in that compassion and support, because we trust that we're all trying to grow, right? Sometimes we don't always see it, but it is part of developing compassion and living community. She says in community, it's impossible to continue the habit of blaming others for our own unhappiness. I would say impossible is not true. Living in community, it's quite easy to blame others for our own unhappiness. But the point is that living in community, the more we're trying to cultivate compassion and the other qualities, values that are here, the less we even in our own integrity, we don't get away with it anymore. Right? We know better. You can feel it inside. It's like you can carry that grudge for a long time, but you know what? This is my mind. It is not that person. And that's helpful. It's helpful to be in that sort of relationship. So we learn to work with our emotions, to work with them more skillfully, to learn to express them to others kindly and honestly. We have classes, skills to do that. And in the process of doing so, we develop transparency, which comes over time as we come to recognize and admit our mistakes, that we can speak them out, and that this also has, by being able to own that, it contributes to this quality of warmth and acceptance among the whole community. So in a different teaching, actually, the motivation that Venerable Chögyam gave recently, she brought up something about compassion that I thought was very interesting. She says that to generate compassion, our mind has to have flexibility, a certain kind of flexibility. That means that we're not locked into our habitual way of seeing things, that we're not so locked into our way of identifying characteristics in other people or how we label them. That if we have the flexibility to acknowledge that our perceptions are sometimes wrong, that our interpretations are not always correct. And so she said, it's important to generate compassion with this flexible mind. Otherwise, we just keep our habits of identifying, putting people in boxes, putting people in holes, Oh, I know, something happens. Oh, I know who did this. They do this all the time. That kind of mind. Oh, this person is always like that. This kind of mind. So not open enough to be able to allow that each one of us has the capacity to change. And for her, she says this is related to realizing with emptiness. Because the more we're glued to our opinions and not willing to change our mind, then how can we have the expansive mind that actually is looking at the nature of reality in a different way? We're just stuck in our mental habits. So I thought that was very interesting. That meditation on the mind as the source of happiness and pain, I think I'm just recommending it more and more and more to everyone these days, and for myself too. It is so precious in being able to look at and just identify, oh, what was I thinking and feeling? What story was I telling myself based on what I was thinking and feeling? What my story I was telling myself, how did that influence what I said and did? And then what did I say, what I said and did, how did that influence the situation? How did the other person react? Then was my picture actually accurate, or seeing it from all perspectives, or was I just looking at through this little hole of me, mine? Over and over and over in developing this kind of community compassion, that meditation, I think, should just be on everybody's puja table. I could do it every day. It would be very important. And then when we have this kind of compassion within the community, we also welcome our guests in the same way. Open arms, warm-hearted, able to also accept them as they come. Because some people integrate easily into the community and when they're guests. For some people, it's not that easy. Things like language barriers sometimes we have to work with, we have to navigate, make space for. Sometimes people have health issues that limit their capacity to be involved. And so we make space and work with that. And people's food preferences and needs, just like ours, sometimes have special needs that we can accommodate. So in all cases, part of our Dharma practice, Venerable Children says, our compassion of practice includes developing this flexible mind and this warm-heartedness that His Holiness is talking about, to welcome guests and to welcome each other. So these are the advantages, she says, of bringing compassion into community life. We develop confidence by working through problems. By working through our conflicts with each other, by working on our internal stuff, we develop continue to grow our confidence in ourselves, confidence in our own wisdom, confidence in our own good qualities, and our capacity to grow. We cultivate compassion, knowing that our companions also suffer from disturbing emotions, and we practice fortitude with them, supporting them as they go through their difficulties. That's an advantage of cultivating compassion. To become bodhisattvas, she concludes, we must cultivate fortitude and compassion for both others and ourselves. Living in community provides an opportunity for us to do so. And she adds, but this is not an easy path. Please do not expect everything to be ideal and rosy. Probably everyone here is over that expectation, except maybe our guests. But not everything is rosy, but everything is warm, I think. Everything comes together in a certain kind of way. And since we want to become bodhisattvas, we must train to bear hardships with a happy mind, thus transforming difficulties into Dharma practice. So that is the essence of that compassion block, that really foundation step that she placed when she was drawing up the guidelines for Sravasti Abbey. It's beautiful for us to think about. It's definitely a part of how we live. And to bring it to mind, often, again, renew, review, revisit, and reflect on the value of compassion as a founding principle of the Abbey. That means it's a founding principle of our practice to cultivate this kind of mind, which joyfully we do together.